When an alien princess accused humanity of lying about their most basic biology, one scientist's response didn't just prove her wrong, it rewrote the rules of intelligence across the galaxy. Dr. Ryan looked out the massive window of Earth's most advanced space station. Stars sparkled like diamonds against the black canvas of space. He had dreamed of this moment his entire career, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. Today would be the first time humans officially met beings from another world. As Earth's leading expert on how different species reproduce and survive, Ryan had been chosen to represent humanity in these historic talks. His job was simple in theory but terrifying in practice. Explain how humans live, grow, and continue their species to creatures who might think completely differently about everything. The space station buzzed with nervous energy. Engineers checked and double-checked their translation devices. Diplomats practiced their speeches for the 100th time. Security teams positioned themselves at every corner, though nobody really knew what to expect or how to prepare for visitors from the stars. Dr. Ryan, "They're here," announced Captain Torres, the station commander. Her voice carried a mix of excitement and worry that everyone felt. Through the communication system, they could hear the approaching ship's engines, a sound unlike anything made by human technology. It was musical, almost like a song played by instruments no one on Earth had ever seen. The alien vessel appeared outside the docking bay, and Ryan pressed his face against the observation window. The ship looked like a living crystal that had been carved by master artists. It reflected light in ways that seemed impossible, creating rainbow patterns that danced across its surface, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Remember," Captain Torres whispered to the greeting team, "we represent all of humanity today. Stay calm, be respectful, and try not to start any interplanetary wars." The docking process took longer than expected. The alien ship seemed to scan everything multiple times before finally connecting to the station. When the airlock doors opened, Ryan felt his heart skip several beats. The first alien to step through was clearly their leader. She stood tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that looked like it was made from the same crystal material as their ship. Her eyes were larger than human eyes and shifted colors like opals. Most striking of all were the intricate patterns that seemed to glow softly beneath her translucent skin, pulsing gently like a slow heartbeat. "I am Princess Zara of the Cosmic Council," she said through the translation device. Her voice sounded like wind chimes mixed with distant thunder. "We come seeking knowledge and friendship between our peoples." Ryan stepped forward, trying to remember his diplomatic training. "Welcome, Princess Zara. I'm Dr. Ryan, and we're honored to meet you and your people. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our species." The next few hours were filled with formal ceremonies and careful exchanges of basic information. The aliens, who called themselves the Zentari, shared details about their home world with its 3 moons and crystal cities. In return, humans showed images of Earth's diverse landscapes. From tropical beaches to snow-covered mountains, everything seemed to be going perfectly until Ryan began his presentation about human biology and society. He had prepared a careful explanation of how humans lived, including their social structures, family systems, and biological capabilities. He thought he was being thorough and scientific. "Humans are unique among Earth species," Ryan explained, gesturing to his holographic displays. "We have developed the ability to reproduce throughout the year, rather than being limited to specific seasons. This has allowed our population to grow steadily and adapt to different environments around our planet." The moment he finished speaking, something changed in the room. Princess Zara's glowing pattern suddenly flashed bright red, and she stood up from her seat so quickly that her crystal-like robes made a sharp ringing sound. "Stop," she said, her voice now carrying an edge that made everyone in the room tense. "You speak falsehoods. No intelligent species breeds without cosmic guidance." "This is impossible." Ryan blinked, completely caught off guard. He looked at his fellow humans, all of whom seemed equally confused. "I'm sorry, Princess, but I don't understand. This is simply biological fact about our species." Princess Zara's eyes shifted to a deep purple color, which Ryan's cultural briefing told him indicated either anger or serious concern among her people. "On our world, reproduction is a sacred act that occurs only when the 3 moons align perfectly in the sky. This happens once every 7 of your Earth years. It is how all civilized species maintain harmony with the universe. But humans don't work that way," Ryan said carefully, trying to keep his voice calm and respectful. Our biology allows for year-round reproduction, though we use social systems and personal choice to manage population growth. The princess's patterns flashed even brighter red. You claim your species breeds like wild animals without wisdom or cosmic connection? This insults the very foundation of intelligent life. Ryan realized he had accidentally touched on something much deeper than simple biology. For the Centauri, reproduction wasn't just about continuing their species. It was tied to their religion, their understanding of the universe, and their definition of what made a species truly intelligent. I understand this might seem strange to your people, Ryan said, choosing his words very carefully, but I assure you I'm telling the truth about human biology. We have thousands of years of records and scientific studies that prove this. Princess Zara stood silent for a long moment, her pattern shifting through various colors as she seemed to think deeply about what she had heard. Finally, she spoke again, her voice now carrying the weight of formal challenge. You ask us to believe something that goes against everything we know about intelligent life in the universe. You claim abilities that would make humans either the most blessed or the most cursed species we have ever encountered. The room fell completely silent. Even the usual background hums of the space station seemed to quiet down, as if the machines themselves were holding their breath. Therefore, Princess Zara continued, I formally challenge the truth of your words. If humans truly possess this ability, you must prove it with evidence that cannot be denied. Until then, I must consider your claims to be either mistaken or deliberately deceptive. Ryan felt the weight of the entire first contact mission suddenly resting on his shoulders. The success or failure of human-alien relations might depend on how he handled this moment. He could see the worry in Captain Torres's eyes and feel the tension from every human in the room. Princess Zara, he said finally, I accept your challenge. I will provide you with complete scientific proof of human reproductive biology. But I ask that you approach this evidence with an open mind, understanding that different species may have evolved very different solutions to survival. The princess nodded slowly, her patterns finally settling into a steady blue glow. I will examine your evidence fairly, Dr. Ryan. But know this, if you are deceiving us about something so fundamental, it will end all possibility of friendship between our peoples. As the formal meeting concluded and both sides prepared for what would come next, Ryan realized that this first contact had become something much more complex than anyone had imagined. It wasn't just about sharing technology or establishing trade routes. It was about proving that two completely different approaches to life could coexist in the same universe. The stars outside the window seemed to sparkle a little brighter, as if they too were waiting to see how this cosmic challenge would unfold. Dr. Ryan barely slept that night. His small quarters on the space station felt even smaller as he paced back and forth, trying to figure out how to prove something that seemed so obvious to humans but was clearly shocking to the Centauri. How do you prove that your entire species works differently than what aliens consider normal? The next morning brought a flurry of activity. Captain Torres called an emergency meeting with Earth's top scientists, all joining through video calls from research centers around the planet. Dr. Chen from the Biology Institute, Professor Williams from the Medical University, and Dr. Patel from the Population Studies Center all appeared on the conference room screens, their faces showing the same mix of excitement and worry that Ryan felt. We need bulletproof evidence, Captain Torres said, getting straight to the point. Not just data, but proof that even beings from another world can't argue with. What do we have? Dr. Chen spoke first, adjusting her glasses nervously. We have thousands of years of birth records, medical studies, and population data. But the challenge is presenting it in a way that makes sense to beings who think completely differently about reproduction. The princess wasn't just questioning our biology, Ryan explained to the group. She was questioning our entire civilization. In her culture, the ability to reproduce year-round means you're either blessed by the universe or completely out of control. Neither option makes humans look good to them. Professor Williams leaned forward on his screen. What if we approach this from their perspective? If they tie reproduction to cosmic events, maybe we can show them how humans have developed other ways to maintain harmony and balance. That's when Ryan had his first breakthrough moment. That's it. We need to show them that humans didn't evolve without wisdom. We just evolved different kinds of wisdom. Over the next few hours, Ryan worked with the Earth-based scientists to create a presentation that would tell the complete story of human development. Not just the biology, but the social systems, cultural practices, and conscious choices that humans had developed to manage their unique reproductive capabilities. Meanwhile, Princess Zara had brought her own team of scientists to examine the evidence. The lead scientist, a tall Zentari with silver patterns flowing under his crystal-like skin, introduced himself as Scholar Vex. Unlike the princess, he seemed more curious than offended by human claims. "Dr. Ryan," Scholar Vex said in his musical voice, "I must admit your species confuses us greatly. On our world, intelligence and cosmic awareness go hand in hand. Species that cannot control their reproduction usually destroy themselves or their environment within a few generations." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "I understand your concern. But what if I told you that humans have found different ways to achieve that same balance? We've developed something you might call conscious choice instead of cosmic timing." The scholar's patterns shifted to a curious golden color. "Explain this concept of conscious choice." Ryan took a deep breath. This was his chance to bridge the gap between two completely different ways of thinking about life and survival. "Imagine," Ryan began, "that instead of waiting for the universe to tell you when to have children, you could make that decision based on your personal circumstances, your resources, your emotional readiness, and your society's needs." Scholar Vex tilted his head, clearly trying to process this idea. "But without cosmic guidance, how do you prevent chaos? How do you ensure your species doesn't overwhelm your world?" "We developed systems," Ryan explained, "pulling up holographic displays of human societies throughout history. Different cultures found different solutions. Some used social traditions, others developed technologies to help families plan, and many combined both approaches." The scholar studied the displays with intense interest, his patterns shifting through various shades of blue and green. "Show me evidence of these systems working over long periods." Ryan had prepared for this moment. He displayed population graphs, environmental data, and social development indicators from human civilizations across thousands of years. "Here you can see how different human societies managed to grow sustainably, even with year-round reproductive capability." "Fascinating," Scholar Vex murmured. His patterns, now a steady green that Ryan had learned, indicated deep thought. "Your species developed internal regulation instead of external regulation." "Exactly," Ryan said, feeling hopeful for the first time since the challenge began. "We had to develop consciousness about reproduction instead of relying on astronomical events." Princess Zara, who had been quietly observing the exchange, finally spoke. "This is still difficult for us to accept. In our culture, the cosmic timing of reproduction is what separates intelligent beings from mere animals. It's what makes us civilized." Ryan knew he had to be very careful with his next words. "Princess, what if being civilized isn't about when you reproduce, but about how thoughtfully you make that choice?" The room fell silent again. Ryan could see that both the princess and Scholar Vex were processing ideas that challenged everything they had believed about intelligence and civilization. "You're asking us to believe," the princess said slowly, "that your species developed a completely different path to wisdom than every other intelligent species we've encountered in the galaxy." "Maybe," Ryan replied honestly. "Or maybe other species developed similar systems, but they're so different from yours that you didn't recognize them as wisdom." Scholar Vex's pattern suddenly flashed bright white, which Ryan didn't recognize from his cultural briefing. "Dr. Ryan, this conversation has raised questions that will require extensive research to answer. I request permission to conduct a full scientific exchange with your species." Princess Zara looked at her scientist, then back at Ryan. "Scholar Vex, are you suggesting that these humans might actually be telling the truth?" "I'm suggesting," the scholar replied carefully, "that we may have encountered something unprecedented. A species that developed intelligence through a completely different evolutionary path than our own." Ryan felt his heart racing. This wasn't just about proving human biology anymore. This was about showing that intelligence could take many forms, that wisdom could develop in ways no one had imagined. "Princess Zara," Ryan said respectfully, "I propose that we work together to understand both of our species better. Let your scientists study our evidence and let our scientists learn about your cosmic wisdom. Maybe we can both discover something new about what it means to be intelligent." The princess was quiet for a long moment, her patterns cycling through colors Ryan didn't recognize. Finally, she spoke. "Very well, Dr. Ryan, we will examine your evidence with open minds. But understand this. If your claims prove true, it will change everything we thought we knew about life in the universe." Ryan nodded solemnly. I understand, Princess, and I'm prepared for that responsibility. As the meeting ended and both teams prepared for the intensive research ahead, Ryan realized that this challenge had become something much bigger than anyone had expected. They weren't just proving human biology, they were potentially redefining what intelligence meant on a galactic scale. The next 3 days turned the space station into the busiest research facility in human history. Scientists from Earth worked around the clock, uploading medical studies, historical records, and population data. Dr. Ryan found himself at the center of it all, coordinating between human researchers and the Zentari science team. Scholar Vex had brought advanced scanning equipment that could analyze data in ways humans had never seen before. The devices looked like liquid crystal formations that changed shape as they processed information. Watching them work was like observing living art that happened to be incredibly intelligent. Your medical records are quite detailed, Scholar Vex commented as he reviewed thousands of human health studies. His patterns had shifted to a steady blue-green, which Ryan had learned meant focused concentration. But I must ask about something that puzzles us greatly. Ryan looked up from his tablet where he was organizing the next batch of evidence. What's that, Scholar? If humans can reproduce at any time, how do you prevent your population from growing too quickly? On our world, the 7-year cycle naturally limits our numbers. What limits yours? This was exactly the question Ryan had been preparing for. That's where human consciousness comes in. We developed the ability to make choices about when and whether to have children. Scholar Vex's patterns flickered with confusion. But without cosmic guidance, how do individuals know when it's appropriate? Ryan smiled, realizing this was his chance to show the real genius of human social evolution. Let me show you something interesting. He pulled up a holographic display showing human population growth throughout history. Look at this data. You'll notice that human population doesn't grow at random rates. It responds to food availability, environmental conditions, social stability, and individual family decisions. The scholar studied the graphs intently. These patterns suggest some form of regulation, but not astronomical regulation. Exactly, Ryan said, getting excited. Humans developed social regulation, environmental awareness, and individual choice as our regulatory systems. Instead of waiting for moons to align, we learned to read other signals. Princess Zara, who had been observing from across the room, approached their workspace. Show us examples of these regulatory systems. Ryan had prepared extensively for this moment. He displayed information about different human cultures throughout history. In ancient times, some societies developed traditions about spacing children based on resource availability. In modern times, we use education, medical technology, and economic planning. These are conscious decisions? The princess asked, her patterns shifting to the curious golden color Ryan had learned to recognize. Yes, Ryan replied. For example, a human couple might decide to wait to have children until they have stable jobs, adequate housing, or until their first child is old enough to help care for a sibling. Scholar Vex's equipment suddenly made a sound like distant thunder. Dr. Ryan, our analysis of your medical data confirms everything you've said about human reproductive biology. But this raises an even more important question. Ryan felt his stomach tighten. What question? If humans truly have this year-round capability, and you've developed conscious regulation systems, then your species might be more advanced than we initially thought. Princess Zara's patterns flashed bright white. Explain this conclusion, Scholar Vex. Princess, consider this. The Zentari developed intelligence in harmony with cosmic cycles. We became wise by learning to follow universal rhythms. But humans developed intelligence by learning to create their own rhythms. They became wise by developing internal guidance systems. Ryan held his breath, realizing that Scholar Vex was reaching the same conclusion he had hoped for, but from a completely different perspective. You're suggesting, Princess Zara said slowly, that humans represent a different path to wisdom? I'm suggesting, Scholar Vex replied, that we may have been wrong about what wisdom looks like. We assumed that all intelligent species would develop the same relationship with cosmic timing. But what if intelligence can take multiple forms? Ryan decided this was the perfect moment to share something he had been saving. Princess Scholar Vex, I'd like to show you something that might interest you both. He activated a new holographic display showing astronomical data. While humans don't tie reproduction to moon cycles, We have developed other connections to cosmic events. We use astronomical knowledge for navigation, agriculture, and scientific research. We even have cultural celebrations tied to seasonal changes and planetary alignments. Princess Zara studied the display carefully. You use cosmic knowledge for practical purposes rather than reproductive timing. Yes, Ryan confirmed. We developed relationships with the universe through understanding and exploration, rather than through biological synchronization. Scholar Vex's pattern suddenly shifted to bright gold. Princess, this is extraordinary. Humans developed cosmic consciousness through science and exploration, instead of through reproductive cycles. They achieved universal awareness through a completely different pathway. For the first time since the challenge began, Princess Zara's pattern softened to a warm blue. If this is true, then humans aren't primitive beings who breed without wisdom. They're beings who developed different wisdom. Ryan felt a wave of relief wash over him. That's exactly right, Princess. We're not chaotic or uncontrolled. We just evolved different control systems. But this creates a new problem, the princess said, though her tone seemed more thoughtful than worried. If two species can develop such different approaches to wisdom, what does this mean for our understanding of intelligence throughout the galaxy? Scholar Vex was already working on his crystalline analysis equipment again. Princess, I believe we need to completely reconsider our assumptions about intelligent life. The humans may represent the first proof that consciousness can evolve along multiple pathways. Ryan realized they had reached a crucial turning point. Princess Zara, what if instead of seeing our differences as problems, we saw them as opportunities? Your species has mastered cosmic harmony. Ours has mastered conscious choice. Imagine what we could learn from each other. The princess was quiet for a long moment. Her patterns cycling through colors Ryan was beginning to understand meant deep consideration. Finally, she spoke. Dr. Ryan, your evidence has forced us to question fundamental assumptions about life and intelligence. This is both exciting and frightening for our people. I understand, Ryan replied gently. It's exciting and frightening for us too. Scholar Vex, the princess said, turning to her scientist. What do you recommend as our next step? I recommend, Scholar Vex replied without hesitation, that we establish a long-term research partnership with the humans. We have much to learn from each other. Princess Zara nodded slowly. Then let us move forward together, with open minds and careful steps. As Ryan watched the princess and Scholar Vex return to their quarters to prepare their reports for the Zentari leadership, he realized that what had started as a challenge to prove human biology had become something much more important. The first step toward a new understanding of what intelligence could be in a universe full of possibilities. The breakthrough came on day 7 of the research exchange, but not in the way anyone expected. Ryan was reviewing data in the main conference room when Princess Zara entered quietly, her usual glowing patterns dim and subdued. Instead of her formal robes, she wore simpler clothing that made her seem more approachable, more real somehow. Dr. Ryan, she said, her voice softer than he had ever heard it, I owe you an apology. Ryan looked up from his tablet, surprised by the change in her demeanor. Princess, you don't owe me anything. We're both just trying to understand each other. She sat down across from him, her patterns shifting to colors he hadn't seen before, deep purples mixed with gentle silvers. No, you don't understand. My challenge to you wasn't really about biology. It was about fear. This was unexpected. Ryan set down his tablet and gave her his full attention. Fear of what? Fear that everything my people believe about intelligence and civilization might be wrong, she said, her hands clasped tightly together. When you said humans could reproduce, year-round, it challenged the very foundation of Zentari society. Ryan leaned forward slightly. Can you help me understand why that scared you so much? Princess Zara was quiet for a moment, her patterns cycling slowly through thoughtful colors. For thousands of years we've believed that cosmic timing is what separates truly intelligent beings from simple animals. Our reproduction cycle, tied to the alignment of our 3 moons, is sacred to us. It's not just biology. It's proof that we're connected to something greater than ourselves. But that doesn't make you wrong, Ryan said gently. It just makes you different from humans. That's what I'm beginning to understand, she replied. But admitting that means admitting that we might have been too quick to judge other species we've encountered. Some civilizations we dismissed as primitive might actually have been developing intelligence in ways we couldn't recognize. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. You mean there are other species out there that your people decided weren't intelligent? The princess nodded sadly. 3 other species, over the past 2 centuries. They didn't show cosmic awareness in reproduction, so we assumed they lacked true consciousness. We limited our contact with them, treating them as lesser beings. Oh, Ryan said quietly, beginning to understand the real weight of what they had discovered together. Your species has forced us to question everything, Princess Zara continued. Scholar Vex ran additional analysis on our historical data about those other civilizations. When we apply what we've learned from humans, some of their behaviors start to look very much like intelligence, just intelligence that developed differently than ours. Ryan realized that their research exchange had implications far beyond human-Zentari relations. What are you going to do with this information? That's why I'm here, the princess said, her patterns shifting to determined gold. I want to propose something that goes beyond our original research agreement. What kind of proposal? Princess Zara stood up and activated the room's holographic display system. Images of star systems appeared in the air between them. I want humanity to help us reconnect with these 3 civilizations, not as the advanced species offering guidance to primitive ones, but as equals seeking to understand each other. Ryan stared at the star maps, feeling the magnitude of what she was suggesting. You want to use what we've learned to build bridges with other species? Exactly. Humans have proven that intelligence can develop along completely different pathways. If we work together, we might be able to recognize and communicate with forms of consciousness that neither of our species could understand alone. The idea was exciting and terrifying at the same time. Princess, that would change everything about how species interact in this part of the galaxy. Yes, it would, she agreed. But isn't that exactly what should happen? Shouldn't discovering new forms of intelligence change how we think about intelligence itself? Ryan thought about all the implications. What does Scholar Vex think about this idea? He's completely supportive. In fact, he believes that studying multiple forms of intelligence development could advance both of our species' understanding of consciousness itself. Just then, Captain Torres entered the conference room, followed by Scholar Vex. Dr. Ryan, Princess Zara, I hope I'm not interrupting something important. Actually, Ryan said, your timing is perfect. The princess just proposed something that I think you need to hear. As Princess Zara explained her proposal to Captain Torres, Ryan watched the captain's expression change from curiosity to amazement to careful consideration. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Captain Torres said when the princess finished. You're proposing a joint human-Zentari mission to establish first contact with 3 other species, using the communication methods we've developed. Together? That's exactly right, Princess Zara confirmed. But it would be true first contact this time. We would approach these species as potential equals, not as judges of their intelligence. Scholar Vex stepped forward, his patterns bright with excitement. Captain Torres, the scientific value of such a mission would be immeasurable. We would be studying the development of consciousness across multiple species simultaneously. Captain Torres looked at Ryan. Doctor, what's your professional opinion of this proposal? Ryan took a deep breath. I think it's the logical next step. We've proven that intelligence can develop in different ways. Now we need to find out how many different ways that might be. There's something else, Princess Zara added. One of the species we want to reconnect with is located in a star system between our 2 worlds. Establishing relations with them could create a communication network that benefits all 4 species. Captain Torres sat down heavily in one of the chairs. This is way above my authority level. I'll need to contact Earth's leadership and get approval for any expanded mission. Of course, Princess Zara said, and I'll need approval from the Zentari Council. But I wanted to discuss the idea with you first, to make sure it was feasible from a human perspective. Ryan realized they had moved far beyond the original challenge about human biology. Princess, can I ask you something personal? Of course. When you first challenged me about human reproduction, did you ever imagine it would lead to something like this? Princess Zara's patterns shifted to what Ryan had learned was the Zentari equivalent of laughter. Dr. Ryan, when I challenged you, I was hoping to prove that humans were either lying or mistaken about their biology. I never imagined you would end up teaching us to question our fundamental assumptions about intelligence itself. Scholar Vex added, the most remarkable discovery in science often comes from questioning what we thought we knew for certain. Captain Torres stood up. I need to start making some very interesting phone calls to Earth, Dr. Ryan. Can you prepare a comprehensive report on everything we've learned so far? Already working on it, Ryan replied. As the meeting broke up and everyone prepared for the next phase of communication with their respective homeworlds, Ryan realized that Princess Zara's original challenge had led to something unprecedented, the potential for a new kind of galactic community based on understanding and cooperation rather than judgment and hierarchy. Princess, Ryan said as she prepared to leave the conference room, thank you for being brave enough to challenge your own beliefs. Thank you for being patient enough to help me do it, she replied. I think we're about to discover that the universe is far more interesting than either of our species imagined. 3 months later, Ryan found himself aboard the most advanced spaceship ever built by human hands. The vessel was actually a joint creation, human engineering combined with Zentari crystal technology to create something neither species could have built alone. As he looked out at the stars rushing past, he could barely believe how much had changed since that first tense meeting on the space station. The mission approval process had taken weeks of careful negotiation. Earth's leaders were excited but cautious about expanding first contact to include other species. The Zentari Council had similar concerns. Both governments wanted to make sure their people were ready for what might be discovered. But the scientific community on both worlds had been overwhelmingly supportive. The chance to study multiple forms of intelligence development was too important to pass up. Ryan had been chosen as humanity's lead representative, while Princess Zara would speak for the Zentari. Dr. Ryan, came Scholar Vex's musical voice over the ship's communication system. We're approaching the first contact coordinates. Are you ready? Ryan activated his console and reviewed the data one more time. Their first stop was a world called Kepler 442b by human astronomers, but which the aliens called something that translated roughly to the singing planet, because of the musical tones its atmosphere produced. As ready as anyone can be for something that's never been done before, Ryan replied. Princess Zara entered the bridge, her patterns glowing with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The singing planet's inhabitants should be receiving our greeting message soon. Scholar Vex, are our translation systems working properly? All systems are functioning perfectly, Scholar Vex confirmed. The combination of human linguistic algorithms and Zentari pattern recognition is creating translation capabilities neither of our species possessed alone. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of preparation. Scientists from both Earth and the Zentari homeworld had worked together to develop new approaches to first contact. Instead of assuming what intelligence should look like, they had created systems designed to recognize intelligence in whatever form it might take. Ryan remembered the breakthrough moment when Dr. Chen on Earth and Scholar Vex had realized that human pattern recognition abilities combined with Zentari cosmic awareness could detect forms of communication that neither species would notice independently. Incoming transmission, announced the ship's AI, which spoke in a blend of human and Zentari vocal patterns that somehow sounded completely natural. The main screen flickered to life, showing what looked like a world covered in crystalline structures that moved and changed shape constantly. But instead of the geometric crystal formations of the Zentari, these structures flowed like liquid while maintaining crystalline properties. Then came the sound. It was unlike anything Ryan had ever heard. Musical tones that seemed to carry information in their harmonies and rhythms. The ship's translation system worked for several minutes before words began appearing on the screen. Greetings, visitors from distant stars. We are the harmonists of the singing planet. Your message of friendship and learning brings joy to our crystalline hearts. Princess Zara's patterns flashed bright gold with excitement. They're communicating through musical mathematics. Look at these harmonic patterns. They're incredibly complex. Ryan studied the data flowing across his console. Scholar Vex, are you seeing what I'm seeing? These musical patterns seem to contain multiple layers of information simultaneously. Yes, Scholar Vex confirmed, his own patterns bright with fascination. They're communicating emotion, factual data, and social context all within the same musical phrase. This is a form of communication efficiency we never imagined. The harmonist on the screen, a flowing, crystalline being that seemed to shift colors with its musical tones, continued speaking. We have long wondered if other forms of consciousness existed among the stars. Your arrival answers questions we have carried in our songs for generations. Ryan realized this was the moment to test everything they had learned about recognizing different forms of intelligence. Honored harmonist, we come seeking to understand the many ways consciousness can develop throughout the universe. Would you be willing to share knowledge with us? The response came as a complex musical chord that the translation system took longer to process. Finally, words appeared. Knowledge shared creates more beautiful music than knowledge held alone. We welcome this harmony of minds. Over the next several hours, Ryan and Princess Zara learned that the harmonists had developed a society based entirely on collaborative music creation. Their reproduction, social organization, scientific research, and even their technology all operated through complex musical interactions. This is incredible, Ryan said during a break in communications. They've created a civilization where every activity is a form of music. Their intelligence developed through acoustic harmony, rather than cosmic timing or conscious choice. Princess Zara nodded, her patterns shifting through thoughtful colors. And notice how they organize their society. It's completely different from both human and Zentari approaches, but it's clearly intelligent and sophisticated. Scholar Vex was practically vibrating with excitement, his patterns cycling rapidly through bright colors. This confirms our hypothesis. Intelligence can develop along pathways we haven't even begun to imagine. The harmonists were eager to learn about both human and Zentari development as well. When Ryan explained human year-round reproduction and conscious family planning, their musical response indicated fascination rather than disbelief. Your species creates harmony through individual choice. This is a beautiful concept, the lead harmonist sang. We create harmony through collective music. Different instruments, same universal song. Princess Zara shared information about Zentari cosmic timing and 7-year cycles. The harmonist's musical response suggested deep respect for what they called rhythm with the greater symphony of space. But the most remarkable discovery came when the three species began working together to solve a problem the harmonists had been struggling with for decades. Their planet's musical atmosphere had been slowly changing due to geological shifts, threatening their entire civilization. Human engineering knowledge, Zentari cosmic calculations, and harmonist acoustic science combined to develop a solution none of them could have found alone. By creating artificial harmonic resonators at specific points on the planet, they could restore the atmospheric music that was essential to harmonist society. This is exactly what I hoped would happen, Princess Zara said as they watched the first resonator being successfully tested. When different forms of intelligence work together, they can accomplish things none of them could do separately. Ryan was documenting everything for the report he would send back to Earth. We're not just making first contact with new species. We're proving that diversity of thought is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. The mission to the singing planet was such a success that both human and Centauri leaders approved immediate continuation to the next system. As their ship prepared to leave orbit, the harmonists sent them off with a farewell song so beautiful that Ryan found himself wiping away tears. Dr. Ryan, Princess Zara said as they watched the singing planet fade into the distance. Do you ever think about how different things might have been if you had just agreed with my original challenge? Ryan laughed. If I had just said, "You're right, Princess, humans can't breed year-round," we never would have discovered any of this. Exactly, she replied. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from refusing to accept that there's only one right way to exist. As their ship headed toward the next star system, Ryan realized that Princess Zara's challenge had led to something neither of them could have imagined. The beginning of a truly diverse galactic community, where different forms of intelligence were celebrated rather than judged. The universe, it turned out, was far more creative than anyone had ever dared to dream.